Hello everyone, my name is Hassani Pettiford and I'm the co-founder of Couples Academy, and I am a marriage coach and an infidelity recovery specialist. Many years ago I started out as a relationship expert, and then as I got married, I transitioned into moving away from singles and more into couples. So my wife and I formed an organization which was committed to helping couples by placing them on the path to fulfillment. Now initially our goal was to help enhance already existing pretty good relationships. But in my practice I've noticed that the overwhelming majority of people who would come to us were couples in crisis, couples on the verge of divorce, couples who have just been impacted by infidelity. It was at that time that I realized that I needed to shift focus, that it wasn't really about what I wanted, but what my client wanted. And so at that time, I decided to specialize in becoming an infidelity recovery specialist. And that process is quite different, very unique from general marital counseling. And as a result of that, we've been able to really help people overcome the pain of infidelity. Generally speaking, the process that we take couples through is quite unique. We focus on the marital recovery, but in addition to that, we focus on your individual recovery. The reason why that is so important is because the path that the hurt partner takes to recover is quite different than the path that the unfaithful partner takes. So while the hurt partner is dealing with the pain of the affair and how to heal one's heart, how to begin to forgive, how to let go, how to trust again, how to manage emotions and control thoughts, the unfaithful partner is trying to figure out how they need to correct certain moral values, new behaviors, placing boundaries and borders around their mind, their heart, their behaviors, how to overcome temptations and attractions. And so the path is very different. And what we found is that when couples only focus on their marital recovery and don't focus on their individual transformation, then they wind up fixing a relationship, but they're bringing their old habits, old ways, idiosyncrasies, inconsistencies, contradictions, faults and flaws back into a new relationship and destroying it. If we were to only focus on your personal recovery, now we have two individuals that have become the best version of themselves and have outgrown each other because there's nothing binding them together. They enter into a bad relationship, and so we focus on both the marital recovery and the personal recovery. But the difference here is, with many counselors, and many of them do a great job, but they only tend to focus on the foundation of the relationship. While we're focusing on the relationship, we're also focusing on the details of the affair. It is very important for both the hurt and the unfaithful partner to understand the why of the affair. Why did this happen? Why did this occur? Because if we can get a better understanding of what caused this, then we can figure out a game plan of how to keep it from occurring again. So that particular process is what we take couples through, and that's what helps them to get to a place where they have a phenomenal relationship. So the first thing a couple needs to do if they've been impacted by sexual betrayal is to seek professional help. We have found that when couples attempt to do it on their own, they're placing themselves in a great disadvantage because they lack the skill and the knowledge base required to overcome the hurdles that will arise as they deal with this process of recovery. You know, I've had many clients that after a session or two have said to me, well, I've heard this all before. This is nothing new. I've been down this path. We've been to other counselors. I said, okay, that may be all well and good, but we've been through 2 sessions. There is a long road ahead. There are a lot of things that we need to cover. And in fact, there are 6 phases, if you will, that you need to go through until you completely heal and recover from what has just occurred. And if you want to do it on your own, good luck. The reality is this. If you think about a plane, if you've ever been on a plane before, as soon as a plane lifts off of the ground and goes into the air, 90% of its journey is off course. The only way that that plane gets to its final destination is that inside the cockpit, it has a radar system or device that's constantly navigating and changing the coordinates and making sure it stays within certain longitude and latitude lines to get it to its ultimate destination. And I, as a counselor and as a coach, become that radar system that guides that couple in the right direction to get to their final destination. Even if we look at it like driving in a car, if you're trying to get to a destination, sometimes people are so focused on the destination, getting to the end, that they hate the journey that they're going through. And because they despise the journey, they never wind up getting to the destination. So it's my job to get the couples to fully embrace the journey, because if they can embrace the journey, then they get to that destination before they even think it. It's just like they look up one day and boom, they're there, because they were focused on the right thing and not the wrong thing. When couples try to do things on their own, this process can be indefinite. And in fact, we know many couples who are married and miserable today because they're still harboring hurt and bitterness and pain and unforgiveness. But when you have somebody assisting you, acting as an accountability partner and guiding you through a process and where you can have aha moments and life transformational experiences, then you're able to reach a level of satisfaction that you could not reach on your own. So when couples seek the help they need, we've seen how most people between a 6-month to 2-year period really get the recovery that they need to sustain a successful relationship. So one of the questions that typically comes up is it okay for the hurt partner to continue to revisit the past by asking question after question after question? Let me just say this. This is a very important phase or season within your recovery process. We call it the disclosure phase. And in the disclosure phase, it is an opportunity for the hurt and the unfaithful partner to have intimate, detailed conversations about the affair. And the reason why that is so important is if you don't provide for your spouse all of the details that they're requesting or requiring, you're forcing their imagination to take over, and their imagination can often run wild. And sometimes a hurt partner's imagination can be far worse than what the truth of the affair may reveal itself to be. And so you're really doing your spouse and yourself a disservice by holding on to critical information. And so this is where your total honesty and transparency is so critically important. I kind of compare it to a puzzle. If you've ever put a puzzle together before, 9 times out of 10, you were delivered a puzzle inside of a box, and on the cover of the box, you had the image of the puzzle that you were putting together. So you open up the box and you have 200 pieces of this puzzle, and you're struggling to take all of these 200 pieces and put them in the right place so that the image of the puzzle reflects the image on the cover of the box. But what would happen if someone gave you a puzzle, but they did not give you the cover of the box? So therefore, you knew not what the image was supposed to look like. And they gave you 125 pieces of a 200-piece puzzle. So not only are you struggling to put these pieces together, you have no reference point of what it's supposed to look like. And as you struggle through and get pieces and sections together, there are still gaping holes. So it just doesn't make sense. You can't see the final image. And oftentimes that's exactly what the hurt partner experiences in the process. They're looking for information, they're looking for details, they're looking for reasons and justifications and explanations, and they're not given what they need. And it just doesn't make sense. And if things don't make sense to the hurt partner, then it's hard for them to move forward. And so that is why they ask a number of questions so that they can understand not only the facts of the affair, but the why of the affair. And so it's important that a professional coach or counselor is guiding you through that process, because it's quite often the case that not only does the hurt partner not know why it occurred, sometimes the unfaithful partner doesn't understand the why. They got caught up in a situation and they're not quite clear. So the process that we take them through, the questions that they're forced to answer, brings those truths and those realities to the surface. And so that's why the question asking phase is so critically important. Now, this is not a phase that should go on forever. 5 months, 10 months, 3 years down the line, you shouldn't be dealing with the details of the affair, because it's forcing you to relive your past experience all over again. But I will say that when I'm working with couples, we leave a big window of opportunity for them to engage in conversation. And when they've done that, we then close the door. That chapter is finished, and then they transition into the next phase. And so there are sometimes when a person will ask the same question again and again and again. And the reason why they're asking these questions over and over and over again is because they're getting a different level of understanding with each answer that is given. So sometimes they zone in on one aspect of the answer, but didn't hear the full answer in detail. So asking it again and asking it again allows them, like a puzzle, to put different pieces together till it makes sense. So it's important for the unfaithful partner to be patient in this process, to give their partner the understanding that is necessary for them both to heal and to move forward. In my professional experience, the most powerful part of the recovery process that I take couples through is what we will call the forgiveness phase, the path to true forgiveness. This is an opportunity where, after all of the details of the affair have been discussed, we're transitioning into the healing aspect. This is an opportunity for both the hurt and the unfaithful partner to apologize and to ask for forgiveness, either for the environment in the relationship that was created that led to the affair, or the actual affair itself. This is probably one of the most vulnerable times that a couple is able to enter into, where they emotionally connect in a way that you've never seen before. There's a lot of tears, heartfelt conversations. It's really an opportunity where couples become naked, and I don't mean physically naked, I mean emotionally naked with one another, where they're taking off all of their layers. See, many of us are like onions, and we have certain number of layers to us, and the more you peel back these layers, you get to the raw essence of who we are. And sometimes there are layers of guilt, layers of pride, layers of ego, layers of hurt, layers of regret, layers of unforgiveness, and when those things are peeled back, I'm telling you, it's like magic that takes place in that room. So I take them through a process where we identify what's not good about forgiveness and what is good. For instance, many people participate in what we call cheap forgiveness, where they're taught, the Word of God says forgive, so I'm just going to forgive. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to deal with it. I just want to move forward. Well, that's ridiculous, because if you do that, you're really not forgiving. You're harboring a lot of resentment on the inside that you've never had enough time to release, and you're not holding your partner up to a standard of accountability where his or her behavior can change. And so you're racing through a process just to get it behind you. Then there's what we call the refusal to forgive. These are those individuals that will never, ever, ever give their partner a pardon for what has done, and will hold it against him or her for the rest of their days together. So the rest of their marriage is a form of punishment, right? It's a power struggle that exists, and because you messed up, you're going to pay for the rest of your life. Well, that doesn't only destroy the relationship, but in essence, it destroys the one who refuses to forgive. But as we transition into the other stages, acceptance is one of the good stages of forgiveness. It's not the best, but acceptance is when you realize that as the hurt partner, I've got to forgive. And even if I'm dealing with an unwilling participant, so my husband, my wife doesn't want to engage, they don't want to seek counseling, they don't want to come on board and help restore this marriage. If the marriage is not going to be what I ultimately want it to be, I got to heal for myself. I got to get over this pain because it's hurting me. So acceptance isn't saying it's okay what you did, I approve of what you did. No, you don't. But you need to forgive that person so that you can have your own peace of mind and your own sanity and your own healing. The final phase, which we, like all couples, actually get to, is what we call genuine forgiveness. And that is when both partners are on board, they're involved in the process, there's accountability, there's healing, there's transformation, there's the foundation for a healthy relationship, and that's ultimately what we want people to be. So in a process where we're actually teaching couples how to write forgiveness letters, they're writing these written monologues expressing the story of the relationship, the story of the affair. They're acknowledging what wrongs have been done, and they're asking their partner for forgiveness. And let me tell you something, it is a life transformational experience. And once they get through that phase, everything else becomes easy. Now, this may seem somewhat controversial, but that's okay, I swim in controversy. If you are a couple in this room right now who absolutely knows that you need help, that even though you're here at this retreat and you're getting phenomenal information that will elevate your relationship to a whole nother level, at the end of the day, you may need more than what this experience has to offer long term. I would encourage you not to seek help by your pastor or from your pastor or a minister in the church, and I'm going to tell you why. The church for a long time has been the number one supporter and advocate of marriage. However, they haven't done the best job of helping marriages thrive and stay together. When you look at the statistics, the alarming rate in terms of divorce in society, we know that it's upwards of 50%, and the church mirrors the world. So just being saved and just loving Jesus and serving God is not going to guarantee a successful, long-lasting, mutually beneficial, committed relationship that does not end in divorce. It takes more than that. It takes knowledge and it takes skills. Now, as ministers, their job is to make sure that your spiritual relationship with the Father is in order. But there's three relationships you got to master. First is your relationship with God. That is what we call your vertical relationship. Then you have the relationship with yourself. That is your internal relationship. And thirdly, you have your relationship with your partner. Those are your horizontal relationships. And sometimes we're looking for horizontal relationship empowerment from ministries that focus primarily on vertical relationships with God. So if you really want to know what it's going to take to enhance your relationship, you should go to somebody who's skilled in it. I kind of compare it to going to a family doctor. If you have a family doctor and you go with a particular ailment, your general practitioner, family doctor, knows how to do certain things, but if there's a particular ailment that you have, he or she may have to refer you to a specialist. Does that make sense? Well, in terms of pastors and in terms of those in ministry who do a phenomenal job of breaking down the word and giving you what you need spiritually, you know, the wise thing to do, if they're not skilled in this area, would be for them to refer you to a specialist. Now, if your church does provide professional help, then amen, glory to God. If not, I would encourage you to seek it elsewhere. And I would encourage you to seek a professional that has a Christian foundation, because that way you're getting the spiritual perspective as well as a clinical perspective. But just giving you principles is not enough. You need application to go along with that. And if truth be told, many of the Christian couples that I've actually counseled have told me that they've had one, maybe two sessions with their pastor. So they've been married for 10, 15, 20 years, and somehow they think that 2 sessions is going to resolve all the issues that they've been struggling with for over a decade. It's not going to happen. You have to realize that when you go to counseling or coaching, it is an investment in your future, and you're going to receive a return on your investment based upon the investment that you put forth. So it may be a journey that you have with a professional counselor, but it is well worth it. Think about coaches. Tiger Woods has a coach. Venus and Serena has a coach. Michael Jordan had a coach. Some of the best people in their fields had coaches to elevate them to another level. So even if your relationship is good, it can always be better. And surrounding yourself by experts and professionals would be the key to your success. So many people often ask the question, when do you get to the point where you can begin to trust again? When you can begin to forgive again? When you can begin to work on your relationship again? Well, it's a process. It takes time. And what we have found is that when couples seek to race and rush through the process, they're doing themselves a great disservice. Think about it like this. If you've ever picked a fruit from a tree too soon, then that fruit may not be ripe. You bite into it, it's going to taste bitter. But if you pick the fruit from the tree too late, it may be rotten. You bite into it, it may be sour and disgusting. So there's timing to everything. There's a proper sequence of things. There's a season that you need to go through. And sometimes we can speed up that season and not allow it to go through its natural maturation process, because there is a law of growth in everything. Or we can wind up being in a season stuck for too long and things get out of hand. And so if you're allowing the natural process to take course, healing will come, transformation will come, and you'll get to a place where you can begin to deal with some of the relational issues that are pressing after dealing with the affair. You know, whatever the issue may be, whether you're having a parenting issue, a sex issue, a communication issue, a financial issue, an in-law issue, whatever it is, we believe in giving couples tools that will help them enhance things. So let me give you a couple principles that I think is important for you to understand. We are taught, particularly in the church, that In order to have a successful marriage, you've got to compromise, that your love has to be sacrificial. And while I understand that concept, and while it may resolve short-term problems and give you a quick fix, long-term it has many negative implications. Because if in a relationship, one person generally is the one who's following the principle of being the compromiser, of being the sacrificer. So if one is constantly sacrificing for the other, one is constantly winning and the other is constantly losing, because compromise is nothing more than a win-lose scenario. Over the course of time, the one that constantly loses, constantly sacrifices, constantly compromises is going to get sick and tired of playing that role. And at some point, he or she will decide to say, you know what, enough is enough. I'm not doing it anymore. And they go rogue. And so the other person who's used to winning is all confused, like, what's going on? Why are you bucking up against the system that has always worked for so long? Well, it's worked for you, but not for me. And so it gets to a point where there's a huge power play in the relationship and things can get dramatically worse. And so that is why we believe in negotiation. There's a term that we use called marital negotiation, and a negotiation is a win-win scenario. Just think about a business deal. Think about a merger and an acquisition. Think about a real estate transaction. Usually you have two parties or more who come together and negotiate back and forth until they come up with something that is mutually beneficial for both parties involved. That is the sweet spot. That is the place where you ultimately want to be in your marriage. So there's a form that we have called the marriage negotiation worksheet. And what it does, it forces you by yourself, not with your partner, by yourself, not to talk out the issue, but to write out the issue. And so this worksheet takes you through 4 steps. Step number 1, you have to write down what the problem actually is. And the reason why that's important is because we find that so many couples are arguing and fussing and fighting about topics, and they're not even clear on what the issue is. I'm talking about this, you're talking about that. We're not even on the same page. Number 2, you have to write down both your perspective and your partner's perspective. The reason why that's important is you certainly know what your perspective is, but you may be far removed from what your partner's perspective on the issue actually is. So you have a false interpretation of what they even feel. And sometimes that's where the conflict comes in. So this helps you to clarify all perspectives involved. The 3rd step in the process is to write down any number of solutions that you can come up with to resolve this particular problem. Now, once you've gone through all 3 steps individually, then you come together and you read from your paper exactly what you wrote. Why? Because oftentimes the way in which we communicate causes a lot of the problem. If you think about communication, words are 7% of your communication, what you say. Your tonality, how you say what you say, is 23% of your communication. Facial expressions, body language, and gestures are 70% of your communication. So oftentimes it's not what you say, but how you say it, and it's your body language and your disposition. All of those things get in the way and keep us from dealing with the issue at hand. So reading from a paper forces you just to use your words in a way that doesn't cause problems, and you're able to get through all 3 steps. Now, the 4th step is both of you merging your solutions and then negotiating back and forth to see which solution you're going to implement in this process. So we may try 2 of your solutions, 2 of my solutions, and we'll play it out for a couple of days, a couple of weeks till we see what works. So this is a solution-oriented process that allows couples to resolve every single issue that they've ever struggled with before, because they're using a tool to guide them through the process. Now, when couples do this, they get phenomenal results. And so that is how you can begin to work through your issues, heal your relationship, and take your relationship to the next level. Once you've gotten past the forgiveness phase, the next phase you want to transition into is the trust building phase. How to restore trust when all hope is lost. At the end of the day, trust is something that you earn not something that has been given to you. Now, you may be given trust in the very beginning of a relationship because there's no reason not to trust you. But once the trust has been violated, it has to be restored. Now, you can violate trust a number of different ways, not only through an affair, but you can violate trust in your partner by not doing what you said you were going to do. Your word is no good. There have been a number of disappointments. Whatever the situation may be, it's a process of time. Now, this is the key. This is what I've noticed. Most couples, all couples, as a couple, they own conflict. Conflict in your marriage is a result of a person's individual issue. So I came into the relationship with issues. My wife came into the relationship with issues. Those issues get in the way of our relationship and they cause conflict. So the marriage owns the conflict, but we own the individual issue. So if I'm committed to being the best person that I can be, and my wife is committed to doing the same, eventually those issues will go away. Once the issues go away, so does the conflict. So couples who are always attempting to work on their marriage and work on their relationship, they're actually doing something that really won't work. The lowest common denominator in every relationship that you enter into is you, because you take you everywhere you go. So when you focus on you, everything else falls into place. I always say that there are 3 relationships that we've got to learn to master. First is your vertical relationship, your relationship with God. Second is your internal relationship, your relationship with yourself. Third is your horizontal relationship, your relationships with your partner. We get so focused on our horizontal relationships that we deny and deprive the time needed to master the internal and the vertical relationship. And so once you become the best person that you can be, and you're constantly working on your own spiritual transformation, your emotional healing, your personal growth and development, that is the key that's the key to the success in your relationship. We say it all the time. Your spouse is not your problem. Your sin is your problem. And once you can get your sin out of the way, you put yourself on the path to a phenomenal marriage. So when a couple comes to me, and oftentimes this is the case, they're at the point of no return. They're ready for a divorce. At least one of the two in the relationship wants a divorce. And so they're constantly vacillating back and forth. Should I stay or should I go? I always tell them, listen, that is a decision that you should not make at this moment, because if you make that decision now, you're making the decision out of deep emotional hurt and pain. And so if you're led by your emotions, it may wind up hurting you in the long run. That rather than making that decision now, why don't you allow me to guide you through the process? And the process that I take you through will present the answer to you. Now, when couples are committed to the process, I already know what the answer is going to ultimately be. They're going to wind up staying together, because that's the whole purpose of coming to coaching and counseling. And so we have a very meticulous process that allows couples to really propel their relationship and realize that breaking up and entering into divorce may not be the best thing for them ultimately. And no matter what the violation, no matter what the hurt and the disappointment is, there is enough within their marriage to overcome these issues and to have the relationship that they ultimately want. Now, I can truly say, as a professional coach, as long as I've been doing this to date, I do not have a single couple who has ever divorced. Understand, we specialize in infidelity recovery and divorce prevention. It's a very specific process we take couples through. And I must say that I have a great track record. So if you're considering that, I highly recommend that you seek a specialist before making the decision to go down that path. Now, we've spent just a few minutes addressing some key principles that I think would be helpful for you and putting you on the path to your own personal recovery and marital recovery. Obviously, there's not enough time in this session or even in this weekend to give you what you need, but I think I've given you enough to get you started. But I also want to extend a gift to each and every one of you. I, on behalf of this retreat, would like to extend to each couple a complimentary, that's right, free 30-minute coaching session. It's a discovery session for me to answer any questions you may have, to help you come up with a long-term blueprint that will ensure the success of your marriage. So whatever it is that you're struggling with, I would be more than welcome to assist you in your process. Simply go to my website at couplesacademy.org. That's couplesacademy.org, and you can sign up for a free 30-minute discovery session there. If you just have a simple question, you can even ask your question on the website, and I'll be more than happy to respond to you with exactly what you need. So once again, I thank you for this opportunity. I wish you well. Listen, I don't know anyone in this room, but I love you. And I love you because God has put such a passion on my heart to help restore marriages. This is my assignment. It is more than my profession. It is my passion. And whatever I can do to be a part of your journey, I'm committed to. Thank you.